So good to see so many people. I know that for some, we won't be turning on the camera, so that's no worries there. There's some weather coming through, so we'll just do what we can. I'm going to give people just a moment to all gather with us. And I know some people are still connecting, so it's good to see some of you. And I tell you what, we're going to start with a practice anyway. So I'm going to invite everyone to get in their seating position, however it is you sit when you practice. Having the feet on the floor, making sure your body is comfortable, back straight, a natural curve, and tucking the chin slightly, maybe hands at your side or on your lap, and eyes gazing downward or closed, whichever works for you. And listen to my voice. Begin by paying attention to your natural breath. The breath entering the nostrils, filling the chest, belly, the rise and fall, coming fully into this moment, letting go of any thoughts that are outside this space, knowing they will come. And as soon as you notice, label thinking, worry, whatever they may be, and come back to the breath. I invite you to bring your full attention into the body, this precious body of yours. Maybe noticing the feet on the ground, the pressure, the weight, knowing they may have done a lot of movement for you today, giving them your complete attention. Maybe you notice the shoulders. And as you inhale, you breathe into them, and exhale and release and let them rest. Noticing if tension can just flow. And as the mind drifts, knowing it will, just be kind. Of course it drifted. And come back to either the breath or to the sensations of your body. Mind will drift. We can label it and come back to the moment again and again. Whenever the mind wanders, there's the practice, noticing it and returning to this moment just as it is, fully awake, fully aware, so the body can simply rest. There's no effort. There's no need to change or do anything. You are simply being present with what exactly is happening in this moment. Maybe you notice where the breath is most prominent as the air enters the nostrils, maybe as it fills the chest or the belly. Just notice where it feels most pleasant for you to follow, and anchor your attention. One breath, again and again. When the mind's distracted, as it can be, we can practice counting each inhale and exhale as one. Inhaling and exhaling as 2, and counting till 10. Whatever practice you choose, feeling the breath, counting. The practice is simply to notice when the mind drifts and come back to this moment, finding ease in the body with a calmness and a focus of the mind. We are training this muscle to be completely present again and again. Breathing slowly in and releasing any air you have, and coming back into this space with me. And maybe just rolling your shoulders. I want to welcome everyone and thank AFT, all of you, for your time this evening that you're going to spend with me. This is the 5th week of a 6-week series, and we've spent time in practicing how to anchor, which helps us stay steady in the moment, knowing that our minds drift. It's a habit. So we just keep coming back to either our breath, the sensations in our hands or feet, or this sense of sound and listening are 3 ways of anchoring. Part of mindfulness is also about being aware of the present moment with this openness, this curiosity, and a kindness. And tonight, we're going to work on dealing with emotions. We've talked about dealing with pain in the body. We've talked about paying attention to the sensations in the body. Tonight, we're going to notice what to do and practice. What do we do with emotions? So I'm going to invite those of you that are interested is just to put up some emotions you have experienced in the last maybe week. Just varying emotions. Just list them out on the chat so we can see all the things that get listed under emotions. I'm going to list a few myself. Let's see if I can do it. Anger, frustration, disappointment, anxiety, sadness over the loss of my dog. I'm so sorry. And anger, fear. I had embarrassment. Yeah. Sadness. So I want you to think now, and I'm going to name an emotion: uncertainty and uneasy. So much of that today. There's so many unknowns: mask, no mask, vaccine, people who are anti-vaccinated. I mean, there's pros, cons, and people are doing things. So there's uncertainty. How long will it last? Am I safe? Just a lot going on. And it is scary. There's certainly fear that comes up. So I'm going to name a couple of things, and I want you to, if you're willing, just list how it feels in your body. If you think of anger, how does it feel in the body when you think of anger? Anybody notice what anger feels like in the body? For me, it feels hot and tense. Ricardo mentioned it's in the stomach. Yeah. So we tension throughout the body, headaches. Yeah. I used to, anxiety, fear, and sadness over the top. I used to suffer migraines, and some of them I could link back to who I'd been angry and what I had done. What we want to talk about tonight is how to notice feelings of emotions, which are also feelings, in the body. And know that the body gives us a lot of messages. And many times we don't pay attention to the body. Like we don't know how we end up with the headache, or we don't know how we end up with the migraine or back pain or shoulder ache, and at night when we're just exhausted. And so this is about learning to pay attention. And some of what we want to do is talk about emotions in general. And I know today in schools, a lot of people talk about social emotional intelligence. Daniel Coleman had brought our attention to emotions and helping kids, young people, identify them. But for some of us, depending on our age, we might not have had a lot of lessons around emotions. I know for me growing up, and I'm over 60, there was this thing that, you didn't get to have emotions. You didn't get to feel sad or angry or experience grief or be mad at someone. If I was hurt, or I was scared, I needed to be brave and just do it. I don't know if anyone's willing to share their emotional messages that they may have received from adults. There were even times when boys were told that they weren't allowed to cry. I was told I wasn't allowed to cry at work as I got older. So there are messages that come around to us either by adults or other friends, or who say, you're such a scaredy cat. And what we want to learn is how to be in the body around emotions and start to learn what it is and explore. This is the time when we pay attention to some of the story that we associate with when we have emotions. And just like we do with being present, we want to learn to go towards the experience, not away from it. Many times we try to ignore being angry or being frustrated, and we just kind of push it down. We stay in our head and say, I'm right, they're wrong, or I had to, this is how I am, and I'm not going to do anything about it. And meanwhile, the body is getting tense, or it's starting to hurt. Maybe there's heart palpitations. We could also talk about emotions of joy, which, are different. But so we want to think about emotions as just energy that we all experience. And that's the gift of humans. Just like our mind works, one of the gifts we have is we experience emotions. We experience the energy of joy and happiness and love. And we also experience the energy of sadness and grief, loss, fear. So all emotions are accepted because they come. They're part of our lives. They are what makes us being human. And we want to be able to be with the emotion and not necessarily the story. So we're going to talk about the difference between the emotion in the body and the story in our mind. So just like when we're practicing and we focus on either our breath, sound, sensations, that's what we're going to do when we're experiencing an emotion. So life happens to all of us. Emotions come and go very quickly if we pay attention and give them the attention they deserve. Just like the saying last week of what we resist will persist. When we ignore certain emotions, they will persist or they'll come out sideways. I don't know if anyone's experienced having maybe a bad experience driving to work. Somebody cut you off, somebody yelled or blew the horn, and now you're not like, why would they do that to me? And so you have this stuff going on, and you get into work, and somebody who's typically very kind to you says hello, you don't see them, you don't say hello, you just ignore them, and you just like, what's good about today? You react. And what we want to learn to do is to be responsive and be aware. And so instead of getting lost in the emotion, is to be fully aware of the others that we're with. So there are a couple things that we think about when we talk about emotions. We talk about it in the body and where it sits in our body and how we feel it. So whether it's anger, and some of you reference these things of where you might feel it, tension in the body, a headache. So learning, and when there's love or joy, there might be, the heart opens, the palms get a little sweaty, or you get excited and there's a lot of energy, you start to smile more. And when you're sad, there's a withdrawing and maybe a heavierness. So just those are for me, not for everyone. So it's different for others. The impact from the mind. So we're going to notice how the mind influences what happens to us and how we can pass this emotion through us or we hold on to it. So there's this difference of noticing an emotion coming and letting it pass through us if we pay attention to it in the body and not the story in our head. Remember, our mind gives us a lot of story. And I do want to invite you to anybody to stop and interrupt or talk or put it in the chat, but I'll pay attention and be happy to address any questions as we go through this. I do want to read a poem by Rumi. And I use this a lot to help with emotions as a reminder to me about them being energy passing through. This is by Rumi, and the name of the poem is The Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrow who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He or she may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door, laughing, and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So this poem kind of reinforces that whole concept that we all, as humans, it's a gift we get to receive, is this energy of an emotion that we may experience. And many times we don't spend time with it enough. It's not the emotion that causes the pain or the suffering. I don't know if you remember, I believe I shared with this about the second arrow. The first arrow is whatever caused the pain. For me, when way back when, I've lost my parents and I lost my husband to illness. And, the first pain was that loss. But But what the second pain was the stories in my head, of the constant repeating the stories of what I could have done differently, what I should have, would have, could have. That wasn't going to change the outcome. And so when we stay in our heads with emotions, and granted, when we have joy and happiness and love, we want to just stay there, but we know that's not how life is. We know that there are things that are sad. There are things that can be fearful to us. And if we don't pay attention, they will come to us in different ways, whether it's the headache, the migraine, the backache, the neck. And so we want to start to pay attention to them. And we can let them pass when we go towards it. You know, we can let it be aware and welcome it and notice it. And, like most guests, it won't stay long. What we learn is it'll pass if we give it the attention. Instead of resisting, we go towards it. We go right into it. So part of this is knowing that a lot of times remembering the flipping the lid when we get to this, the amygdala, which is part of the brain, it's in the back here, it gets activated. If we get scared, if we get angry, if someone hurts our feelings, we may, and what we want to learn to be is instead of reactive, we want to be responsive. We want to be able to come back to this logic and reasoning and not let the story run off with our mind. And that's why we sit and breathe and practice. Mind drifts, we come back. Mind goes to thinking, we label it, and we come back to the breath or the body. Anybody willing to say what they do to ignore their emotions? I had a girlfriend that would play Candy Crush all the time. If I found her playing Candy Crush, I knew something was going on, and she might not talk about it, but she was avoiding something. Anyone ever binge watch a show? Just too tired to even think about how you're feeling? Binge watch reality TV. Yep, I've done it. I've been known to eat a gallon of ice cream. Somebody else eats. That's me. Some people may drink, find other things to do, keeping busy. Yeah. I used to do that really well. Shop online. Yeah. I have a friend who does that. Shop. So there are things we do when we don't want to pay attention to what's going on. Immerse myself in some hobbies like dancing. I have to say that sounds fun. Working out. Other times drive or watch videos. Shopping thing too. And there are things like working out and hobbies that we can do that are really healthy. I mean, shopping is something that could be healthy. It's when we're doing it and we're not even paying attention. That's what we want to be able to differentiate. Am I doing this because avoiding something? And am I completely present in what I'm doing, whether it's shopping or watching a TV show or working in the garden or crocheting or knitting, or am I just doing it to avoid? And that's what we want to be able to differentiate. Replaying songs over and over. Yeah. So, I mean, part of this is knowing that we can do things to avoid emotions, feelings, hurt, sadness, embarrassment, shame. And just remember, what we ignore or what we resist will persist. And that a lot of times this will come out sideways. I mean, for me, eating a gallon of ice cream wasn't helping me at all with my emotions. And then as a result of that, I didn't feel well, and then I'd be unhappy. So the domino effect of doing that wasn't a healthy way. And didn't make me feel better, didn't resolve things for me. So what we want to do is use the skill of mindfulness and the awareness of what we can learn about our body to allow the emotion, to be aware of it, welcome it almost, and be with it and see how it passes through us. Um, we want to feel it in the body, but not in the story of the mind, not in the story that we might be, the term rumination, of just the story that we replay over and over and over. I don't know if you've ever had someone say something to you that every time you think of it, it just, the heart maybe palpitates or the shoulders get tight. And so we want to be aware of that and know that that's the mind telling you something that may have happened 2 weeks ago, right? May have been yesterday, but you're still feeling and thinking and replaying that conversation as if you can change it. And it still holds power over your mind and your body. And what we want to do is shift from the mind and pay attention to the body. So we're going to do, if we change and pay attention, then our own energy shifts and we can watch it. We can be a witness to it, like almost an investigator, a researcher that says, wow, this is kind of crazy. It does change, just like the pain in the body does. So how do we let go of those? Yeah, well, we're going to work on those. Not easily, but that's why we call it a practice. And what I will offer is the more practice of awareness, of knowing and paying attention to the thoughts in the mind and saying, I'm coming back to this moment. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to pay attention to my body. I'm going to listen to sounds. The greater ease we will find in the benefits from this practice, reducing stress, reducing anxiety, sleeping better, possibly, but it is practice. So I know that Jamie always reminds you that we do a guided practice Monday evenings. And so I want to invite you to that. And also I'll share some other free apps that you can access. And based on voice and what you like, the more you practice this exercising of the mind, just like you would if you go to the gym or do yoga or some other exercise, this is about being aware. It's not about clearing the mind. It's not about emptying it. It's about knowing, wow, I'm still thinking. Wow, I'm worrying. Wow, I'm writing my to-do list. And I want to come back to my breath or my body or my sounds. So we'll see. Couple things as a reminder, the energy comes in ways of story. So, the components of emotions first are the story, which might be the event, the conversation, the experience, something that happened. My heart goes out to the person who lost their pet. I know we've also had some school shootings. I mean, the fear from that, the sadness of losing someone. Those are high end emotions, but so those are stories that we can go around to. I have a friend whose pet recently, about 2 months ago, and couldn't talk about it. And she just got a new puppy. And so there's some time that takes for healing, just like the typical grieving of things. So story. Second part of emotions are where they are in our body. Think about how your body feels when you're happy, when you're maybe your first love or your first kiss, if you remember that. Or when you've lost something you love and how you feel. there are body reactions when we have energy from emotions and they come into the body. Losing family and friends, it's just a lot. There's the emotional tone that we talk about, and obviously with some of this, the losses, the fear, there's an unpleasantness. And with love, joy, happiness, there may be joyous. I mean, if you think of those of you who have children, that when your child was born, this incredible, I can only imagine it, I don't have, but this incredible love and joy, and at the same time, maybe later being exhausted and scared. I mean, you have this little infant that you're now caring for and responsible for. So lots of energy that comes and goes, pleasant, unpleasant. So there's always a tone of how emotions come into our body. Any questions at this point? I am going to address, because we're going to do an exercise about how we notice the story and come back to the body, which is the practice. But we're going to go through an exercise of dealing with what I would call maybe a 3-pound weight or a 5-pound weight. When we first go to the gym, we don't pick up the 100 pounds. So, we're going to deal with maybe something that generated some emotion that you want to touch on, but it might be more of like a conversation of something somebody said to you, or an experience of driving to work and getting angry, or maybe something embarrassed you, but no loss at this time. I mean, I just because we're not in the room together and it's a practice, and I want to give you the tool before we go that deep. So we're going to do a practice that, and I'll send this in my notes when I send out the notes to Hannah as reference. Tara Brach is a well-known practitioner, teacher of mindfulness and meditation, and she has created this experience of dealing with energy and emotions, and it's called RAIN. So I'm going to just give us a quick introduction to it, and then we'll go through it together. So the first part, the R of RAIN, is to recognize that there's an energy and an emotion in your body. And we don't always know what it is at that moment, but if we pause and pay attention and feel, like for me, when I'm nervous, my heart palpitates. So if I all of a sudden notice my heart palpitating, I know to pause and pay attention, like what has caused this, and what is it that I need to take care of myself. And what we do when we recognize that something's happening is we label it, just like when our mind drifts. We talked about this, I think, in the week 1, about when we label things. It's like labeling the monster. Anybody has children knows that if you name something that they're afraid of, it softens it. I mean, research has shown that if we can name something, it's not so scary anymore. It's like naming the dragon, and giving it a name that softens it. And so that's true with emotions. When we can recognize we have an emotion and we can name it, and many times we go right to anger because that's the easiest one. So I want you to be aware of, am I really angry, or am I hurt? Or am I embarrassed? Or am I sad? We disguise anger for a lot of emotions, and it's just what we learn. So we just pay attention. So the first thing is recognizing and labeling. The second one is the A. We learn to accept and say, wow, I'm experiencing fear. This is fear. I am feeling afraid right now. And I allow it. I allow it to be in my body in that moment. And it doesn't take long. Just paying attention, um, and knowing that there's something in our, going on. So we recognize it, we label it, we allow it, accept it, acknowledge it. Here you are. The third thing we're going to do is we're going to learn to investigate it, to explore where it is in our body. You've done a lot of the work in the body. We did a full body scan, named all many parts of our body, knowing we have a vocabulary for how things are in our body, pulsing, throbbing, twitching, tightening, softening, pounding, aching, opening, light. Let's talk about the good emotions. So just investigating the sensations in your body, wherever they may be. And just like we do with the definition of mindfulness, we investigate them with a curiosity, an openness, and then, of course, a kindness for self. And the last part of rain is the in. One, we non-identify with it. This energy, this emotion, just like Rumi said, is a guest, doesn't own us, it doesn't define us. I can be very sad, and but it doesn't make me a sad person. Just like all of us, I bet, have experienced anger, doesn't make us angry people. Many of us, unfortunately, may have experienced sadness and grief and loss. It doesn't make me a sad person. So what we want to learn is this doesn't define me. This emotion isn't me. Just because I'm feeling embarrassed doesn't mean I'm an embarrassing person. So we want to non-identify. The other piece that we want to do is look at, what do we need? What is it that would nurture me in this moment? For some, it might be calling a friend. For some, it might be, if they can, get a hug from a child or from a significant other. For some, it might be journaling or taking a nap. There were moments for me where what I needed was just to cry, and let myself cry and not be embarrassed, not be ashamed. But what I was doing was staying in the body and not in the story. And that's what we want to just try to do and see what happens, and how we can do that without reacting and tightening up. So part of this is recognizing that all emotions are acceptable. We'd like to say some are bad and some are good. The reality is, though, all emotions, all of us, may experience emotions at any given moment. We're not sure when they come, and what we want to do is learn to be with any of the emotions. And when we're happy and joyous, we want to be present. We don't want to be thinking about a beach somewhere else or a book or wherever else. We want to be there in the moment and fully feel that and learn how joy and love feels in the body. And welcome it just like you would anger, fear, frustration. So I want to invite us now into a practice. And what I'd like you to do, and this has to do with the 3 to 5 pound weight. I can't define that for anyone. But But I want you to think of maybe a conversation that happened recently. Maybe it was an email, um, or an exchange with, I don't know, somewhere in the service industry. Just think of something that brought up some type of energy and emotion. And when you have your story, um, so we're going into the exercise. Um, Welcome back. We're going into a practice of dealing with emotions, but I want it to be like a 3 to 5 pound weight and not 100 pound. So think of it, and as soon as you have it, just put up your thumbs up or kind of give me some sort of signal that you have a story and a situation you're going to practice with. And remember, I don't want a big one, just a simple one. So when you get it, let me know. And I see one. So good. More. Okay. Thank you. I'm going to give people a minute and then we'll get started. Just um, so think about, could be a conversation with a child, a boss, someone at the shop or on the phone. Maybe a disagreement, something challenging or difficult. Okay, we're going to start just because I want to give people time. So, find your seat. Again, being comfortable so the body is supported. Um, Maybe gazing downward or closing the eyes if you're willing. And just finding your posture and breathing naturally. Breath. Nothing magical about this. All of us have this with us. And I want you to recall and recreate the experience in your mind. This is one of those times where you go back to that scene, thinking about where you were, what was around you, what was happening, and go to the story, the specific situation that you experienced. Just pay attention to that for now. And notice now, we're going to go into the experience of rain practice. So I want you to turn into your body and recognize and feel the emotion. Notice how it feels and label it. Can you define what emotion you're feeling? And notice if it's anger, just explore a little bit more and decide, is it really anger or maybe sadness or fear, maybe embarrassment? Just nobody knows but you. And give it a name. Knowing that when we name the dragon, it softens. Giving this a name and saying, wow, this is how fear is right now, or sadness, or anger. And if you can't name it, maybe chaos, just craziness. Notice the name, repeat it in your mind, and return to the body and the sensations. And can you simply accept it? You're here. This is with me. I've named you. I'm acknowledging your happening, and I'm allowing you to be my guest in this moment. We allow the emotion, knowing what we resist may and can persist. And maybe you're not okay with the emotion. Just pay attention to the sensations, whether it's tightening in the neck or the back or the stomach getting in a knot. Notice what's happening and pay attention, accepting the sensations. And now go deep into the body, paying attention, investigating. That's the eye of rain. Investigating with this openness, this curiosity, and of course, kindness. Notice the aspect in the body, the sensation, maybe a tightness, a tension, could be warm, heat, or cold and chill. Where is the energy in your body, the guest in your body? As you notice it, allowing it, maybe you're noticing the tone of it, positive, sad, negative, neutral. Just notice again. Not nice, not happy, not pleasant, or maybe pleasant, but being aware of how this energy, this emotion is the guest in your body. Notice how your face, maybe breathing in as you're paying attention to the pounding, to the throbbing. Can you soften with it? Can you notice it changing as you pay attention to it, as you investigate it and name it? Notice if it's in the shoulders or the chest. Notice if the jaw is tightening or the head is aching. And remembering to approach it with this gentle kindness. Yeah, this is how this emotion feels. And breathing into the whole body, fully aware, paying attention, investigating it. And now shifting from investigating to not identifying. This is not mine, doesn't belong to me, doesn't define me. It's not staying with me. Anytime the mind goes to story, and it will, come back to the present, just as it is in your body, noticing. And then maybe saying, what is it that would be helpful for me right now to nurture, to give myself some loving kindness in this moment with this emotion, to care for the guest as I'm paying attention. Maybe a walk, a phone call to a friend, maybe a hug from someone I know close by. Maybe it's a nap, taking care of myself, fully aware, recognizing, labeling, accepting and allowing this emotion in me, investigating it, knowing how it's feeling, and then not keeping it, not mine, doesn't belong to me. And then nurturing myself, thinking of how I can take care of myself in this moment with this emotion as it is, the guest passing through, and notice how the body shifts as you breathe in, giving it space, feeling it, and not clinging to it, not holding it, letting it go. Continue with your own breath, the natural breath, following it as it enters the nostrils, paying attention, breathing in into the chest and the belly, and releasing, and maybe noticing how the body is feeling now. Just being present with things just as they are. Anytime we do this practice, we close with a loving kindness and compassion experience, knowing we're building this ability of equanimity, being with what is in the present moment, approaching it with a curiosity, an openness, and a sense of kindness and awe, just like a young child. This is all new. Let me pay attention. And we've done this before. And so in this practice, we can put our hand on our heart, or we can simply hold our hands on our lap. I'm going to offer some phrases in this sit. They are for ourselves and to the others who are on this call with us, and to the others who are not, who also might be experiencing similar emotions. Because all humans experience the emotion of love, of grief, of fear, of sadness, of joy. And we want to acknowledge that. We want to recognize that we're never alone. Someone said on the chat, we can be with our family and others, and we lose some. So we want to just think of ourselves and others in this loving kindness practice. Sometimes it can help calm us and bring us some ease and quiet. I'm going to say a few phrases that I invite you to repeat to yourself, and the handout I send will have some also. May I be safe from harm. May all other human beings be safe from harm. May I accept myself as I am, perfectly imperfect, human being that makes mistakes just like everyone else. May all other human beings accept themselves, perfectly imperfect human beings that make mistakes just like me. I'm going through a lot right now. May I feel comforted in these challenging times. other human beings are experiencing a lot right now, just like me. May they feel comforted in challenging times. May my suffering be eased. May all others' suffering be eased. May I have peace of mind through difficult experiences. May all other human beings have peace of mind through difficult experiences. Notice your breath. Notice how you're feeling. May I remember people care about me. May all other human beings remember people care about them. I invite you now to continue with your breath and take a moment to offer a message to yourself and also to a friend or anyone else that you're thinking of. And when you're ready, join me in this space. And I invite you now just to write what you noticed in that experience. What happened in the body, how it felt, what you noticed about your emotion that you might have been experiencing, whether it softened and was different when we ended the experience. First had a knot in the throat, tight chest, knot in the stomach, tightness, neck and back, kind of softened and went away for the most part. Thank you. And really incredible noticing where that emotion was. And I wonder if you had a name for the emotion. Calming and relaxing and letting things go. Thank you. Okay. So we do want to develop a vocabulary for the emotions that we might be experiencing and digging into them and learning that a lot of our emotions have needs, which is why we look at the nurturing aspect of it. And when we're able to name it and identify it, be with it, investigate it, I think some of you noticed that it started to release. The tension in the neck area began to release. So often we spend the time with the story. Remember, the emotions come with a story. Something happened, somebody said something, an incident occurred, and we relive that story. And that story typically is what causes the suffering. Um, some of you, when we've been on the classes earlier sessions, have said you've been exhausted and you got into bed and your mind starts working and nobody can sleep. Well, whenever our mind is activated, we can't rest. And so when we're still thinking, our body is reacting. This is a way and a practice to shift from the story in our mind to paying attention to what's happening in our bodies. The more you can name it, remember, naming it softens, and be with it, investigate it. So the noticing the tension in the neck and being able to notice how it was when we started and how it was when we were closing. After you realized, you don't own this emotion, we non-identify, doesn't belong to us, it's a guest that's going to move, it's energy. Maybe that's when we notice the nurture, the releasing and the softening. Or maybe it was when we decided, what is it that we're going to do for ourselves? Are we going to call a friend, get a hug, be kind to ourselves, go to bed early tonight, and maybe practice some breathing. The exercise we ended with, the practice that we did before we ended, is a loving kindness practice. And it is one that is associated with meditation and mindfulness, that the more we pay attention and open up our own heart, for ourselves, when we kind of just, even if we put our hands on our heart or hands together in our lap, there's a sense of being present. And then when we think of others, that we're not alone. We're not the only ones who suffer from sadness or from grief, or the only ones who experience joy and happiness, as well as fear, maybe in the same. That we begin to acknowledge and accept them as they are. That we all have experienced it, just like me, as some say. I've had the experience where I've gotten angry at a driver for cutting me off and realized I've done it just like me. It's happened. And so that sense of I'm not alone, I'm not the only one who's done it, loosens up the emotions. So I want to give you time. It was also a practice we did when we dealt with physical pain. But I want to check in and see if anybody has questions or has a comment about their practice. We have some time, and next Wednesday, we will practice again Monday at 6:15, and then Wednesday we're dealing with thoughts and what to do with all those thoughts that come into our mind constantly. You may recall I referenced that we believe there are your mind can generate up to 70,000 thoughts. It's an incredible organ in your body that is a gift. It does so much for us, but it can also take us away from the moment again and again and again. And what we're learning to do is just bring it back, knowing that it's going to drift again. So questions or comments? The handouts I send you will outline the rain experience, and also will give you information about loving kindness practice. No, so thank you. Um, I appreciate the feedback. So when you practice, you can practice laying down, you can practice walking, you can practice anywhere that works. It can be stopping and just being aware of your breath if you want. Um, if you're going to practice for 20 minutes, which is ideally, we're not sure, to be honest. Some people say 10, 15, 20 minutes. Main thing is to practice. You want to be comfortable. So if it's sitting on a chair or sitting on a cushion or laying down um, or kneeling, um, we did walking meditation in week 3. And so there's or movement meditation. So you can do it in movement. The main thing is being completely aware of the sensations as you move. So you can sit at your desk and simply begin to raise your arms up as you're breathing, inhaling, and just feeling that motion and then releasing. You could also do it standing if that's in your capacity. Appreciate the comments on the loving kindness and the sessions. And I see all that you've said. I believe these are recorded, as I recall. Jamie has said they are recorded. I'm not sure how to access them, but I'm sure she'll make people aware. Yeah, somebody mentioned it's hard I think, not alone in that a lot of our families didn't talk about emotions. They didn't help us. So sometimes nobody asked how we felt. And when we wanted to tell them, they didn't want to be with us. For me, I was told to like grow up and pull up my bootstrings. I'm sure there are people, also others, who didn't know how to express them. And that's why we want to investigate that whole experience of rain, recognizing, labeling, coming with the vocabulary, allowing it, accepting it, investigating how it is in the body with this curiosity and kindness. Yeah, I know I need to practice. Be kind to yourself. The week goes and it's hard and you're not alone. And we're going to talk about reminders next week. And so that's part of what we're going to work on and part of what I'll share in next week's session. So Jamie is saying the recordings aren't posted yet, but she's going to check on it for everyone. So you'll be able to access all of these less nervous. It helps me. It's not that I don't get nervous. It's just that I know what to do with it when I get it. So, and it is a practice, and be kind. That's why a gift from AFT is that signing on Monday night and just practicing with us. I'll list some of the apps that are available and offer free guided practices, sometimes as few as 3 minutes to as long as 40, 45 minutes. And so it's up to you. Also, just finding that time. I think last week we talked about just being present with washing your hands. When you get up in the morning, if the first thing you do is wash your face, noticing how that feels and getting present. And knowing you might already be thinking about the day of what you're going to have for breakfast, just label it breakfast and come back to the sensations of the water. Maybe it's cool, maybe it's warm. But we'll talk some more about habits and maybe there are people who have already found ways to remind themselves to practice. So if you have ideas, this is a great time to put it on the chat, of what to do to remind yourself to practice. And I'm going to assume that, Jamie, that all the other handouts I've sent have been up or will be available to everyone, so they can go back and review weeks 1, 2, and 3. Yes, thank you, Jamie. I am going to offer that if there aren't questions or comments, that people can get their dinner early or start their evening routine with reminding them to start with self-care, how you want to take care of yourself tonight and get some good rest. And hope to see you on Monday. I'll wait for people to sign up though. So be well, be kind. And yeah, tea is beautiful. Nice, warm water. Good. Glad it was helpful.